All right, hey people. This is Chris Lucas. I just thought I'd make a quick video trying to run through how to interpret Daniel 8 verse 14. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with Numbers 28 just to explain something about the daily offering, which is spoken about in the previous verses. Um, if you read Numbers 28, um, verse 3, it says, "And you shall say to them, this is the food offering that you shall offer to the Lord, 2 male lambs, a year old without blemish, day by day." So that's why it's sometimes referred to the daily or the continual, because it says day by day as a regular offering. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. So keep that in mind. It's 2 lambs day by day. One lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Okay, so in the previous verse, we see this question, and I heard a holy one speaking, and said another holy one to that certain one who was speaking, how long the vision concerning the daily sacrifices and the transgression of desolation, the giving, and both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot. So that's the question, right? So keep in mind it's asking about the daily, right? So how long is this vision concerning this? So when we go to the next verse, um, it's we get the answer. And he said to me, for evening. Now, this is, they don't have this properly translated right, because the word Arab right here, it just means evening, not evenings. And this is important that it's in the singular. If it was in the plural, it would say Arabim. It would have like an I and an M on the end of here when they're transliterating it. And Bokarim, but it says Arab Boker 2,300. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, right? So, and this is important because it being in the singular evening, morning, and just so you know, I'll click so you know that word is actually the word morning, not days. And everywhere it's translated, except for right here, it's always translated morning, as you can see on the right hand side. So, whoever did this did a bad job. But anyway, or you could say that maybe they were meaning a daylight period of time, right? But anyway, evening, morning, 2300. And why that's important is you got to think this is an angel speaking, and it's speaking to another one. Now, Daniel's overhearing it. So these angels are not illiterate. They don't, it's not like they're stupid and dumb. These are intelligent angels. They know how to speak Hebrew properly, and Daniel's overhearing them. So if they're saying evening, morning, 2300, why are they using, if it's 2300 evenings and mornings, why didn't they use the plural form? Because in the Hebrew they could have said 2300 Arabim and Bokarim, but instead they used the singular, you know. So they could have said 2300 evenings and mornings, right? But instead they go in reverse order. They go evening, morning, then they say 2300. So why did they say it in that order instead of saying 2300 evening, morning? But they said evening, morning, 2300. So keep that in mind. And the reason is, like I showed you in Numbers 28, it gives a sacrifice in the morning and in the evening, right? So it's proper to say evening, morning, if all you're talking about is the time when the sacrifice is given. So that's why these angels are not like being stupid or, not knowing the grammar and not knowing how to properly speak like some people accuse them of. Um, they know how to speak proper um, Hebrew. So when they're saying evening, morning, it's proper if all they're doing is referring to the time that the daily is given. And then the 2300 involves how many times the daily is defiled or trampled upon or interrupted, right? So the evening morning is when this sacrifice is done. The 2300 is how many times it's interrupted. So by them saying it that way, that's how you we now have a proper interpretation where we're not making the angels sound illiterate and dumb. Because if you say, oh no, it's supposed to be literal periods of evening mornings that has nothing to do with when the daily sacrifice is given, well, it would have been proper to say 2300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be cleansed. And if it's actually supposed to mean 2300 days, what they need to say is 2300 evenings and mornings. But we just see it say evening, morning 2300. So why doesn't it say evening and morning 2300? Or 2300, well, I guess it really should say 2300 evenings and mornings is what it should say, at least. Or even better, what it really should say is, if it's so focused on evening morning, 2300 evening and 2300 morning, then this, well, 2300 evenings and 2300 mornings, and then the sanctuary will be cleansed, right? So it needs to have that in plural. But the reason it's not in plural is all it's doing is talking about when the sacrifice is given, and then the 2300 is the amount of times, okay? Now, because this sacrifice is done twice a day, that means that this occurs in 1150 days. And some people have argued it could actually be less days, because maybe you add up all the sacrifices that are given, right? But because this is it's speaking about the daily, I think we're only supposed to figure out just the daily that's given, which was a two sacrifices a day. So that's why I don't add in the extra Sabbath sacrifices and things like that. But some people have speculated that's what you're supposed to do. But anyway, that's how we know that it's not talking about literal days, right? Because it just doesn't make sense to have these words in the singular form. And people that argue against this interpretation, I've have yet to see them explain why these angels suddenly couldn't speak proper Hebrew, and why they are saying evening, morning 2300 instead of saying 2300 evenings and mornings, right? If they were only referring to the days, and it had nothing to do with the sacrifice, the daily sacrifice. Okay. And people overlook that because very few people go and look that deeply at the Hebrew wording, and they don't even realize that it's in the singular. Because when I'm reading a Geneva Bible, what it does is it says 2300 evenings and mornings, right? Which is proper if you're actually only focused on like literal mornings and evenings, right? And you're saying there's got to be 2300 of, each one. And but then that's why they get into these uh, where they don't get these time prophecies correct, because then they're saying, oh, it's supposed to be days. But when you realize it's in the singular, now you have to think of why that's in the singular. And when you start thinking about why it's in the singular, then you know it can't be 2300 days. Okay. And just to further just double down on that, if you look at Daniel, I might have to do it this way, might be the quickest way. Daniel 8:26. Oh, I don't know why it wouldn't let me do it like that. I guess I'm gonna have to do it the slow way. But in Daniel 8:26, while we're waiting for me to click all the way over there, kind of frustrating that it just wouldn't go there. But it says, and the vision of the evening. Again, they put an S on here because the people, the English speakers, are kind of being a little lazy, and they're not thinking about this all the way. And that's fine. They're translating thousands and thousands of words. So I understand why they would overlook it and put evenings here again. But this is Ereb and Bokur. And this ha at the beginning, that just means like the, right? Like the evening and the morning. So hob right here, that's just the also. This is and that W and that E that's upside down and the morning. Okay. So the evening, right? So the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. So that means it can only be that amount of sacrifices, right? So you can't have it extend past 2300 sacrifices. Um and by it saying the evening and the morning, and you can also see this is the same exact word, so that's why it can't be days, because right here they even translate it to morning, right? But they put the S on it because what they're thinking is it's talking about 2300 evenings and mornings as like parts of a day, right? When that earlier verse was only talking about how the sacrifice is done in the evening and done in the morning, then it tells you how many times the sacrifice is going to be holded. So, but these people, they're trying to speak proper grammar, and proper English, because if you're talking about 2300 or something, you always make it plural. But because it's only referring to the time that the daily's done, you don't need it in the plural form. And these people overlook that. So that's why it's in singular form. And this is the only sense you could make out of it, unless you want to say the angels are stupid and they don't know how to talk. And I don't think you should go there, right? Um, so I can't think of any other reason. That's why I interpret it this way, and everything fits the prophecy. Um, So, and if someone wants to go, no, the prophecy still can't fit. Well, you still have to, whatever way you interpret this, you have to make sense of the Hebrew being in singular form and why the angels can't speak proper Hebrew and they're illiterate. If they mean anything else but what I said it means, right? And I'm not the first person to have this interpretation. There's many Jewish sages and rabbis that have had the same interpretation. That's how they came up with 1,150 days. Okay. Um, so, and also, there's been other Christians that came up with this interpretation. I'm not the first one. When you actually look at the Hebrew, you come up with this interpretation. Um, So that's it. I just want to keep this short, simple. Um, this isn't a very complex thing to figure out, and it will help you figure out the rest of the prophecy, because it's very easy when you read the entire prophecy and see when you read the book of Maccabees that this time period fits in with the time period that Antiochus persecuted the Jews. Right. And please remember that when it's talking about Kislev 15 to Kislev 25 in the book of Maccabees, that's only the time that he sets up the Antiochus sets up that altar to Zeus. That doesn't count the whole time that the sacrifice was stopped. Okay. Because there was also a previous time where he gives out like an edict to prevent the Jews from sacrificing. So please keep all that in mind. And that's it.